Hi. To begin with, thanks for accepting our invitation. And we are very curious about the last situation in Palestine. So let's begin. Can you introduce yourself?
My name is Yoav Haifawi. I live in Haifa and I am active in Herak Haifa, which is a Palestinian movement that opposes Israeli colonialism and try to organize the grassroots activity of the local population to defend itself and to fight for itself.
Okay, so can you briefly summarize the recent situation in Palestine now?
I think almost everybody in the world know basically the situation in Palestine now. Israel is, first of all, this situation is about the same situation for the last 73 years. Israel is holding an apartheid regime in Palestine, on all of Palestine. Like until 67, they had apartheid regime only on 80% of Palestine, and since 67, they have an apartheid regime on all of Palestine. And the main strategy of this apartheid regime is not only to enslave the Palestinian people, but to expel the Palestinian people from their land. And they do it all the time in big ways and small ways, in bombing and in discrimination and in land confiscation and in all sorts of racist and violent ways. And from time to time, they do it in a bigger way, like they do today, when they bomb Gaza, for example, or they kill people. Just yesterday, there were 10 people killed in one day in demonstrations in the West Bank. And today, we heard that also inside the Green Line in Al-Fahm, one guy that was just sitting near the street, he was not even taking part in the demonstration, he was shot dead by the police. So this policy of not only discrimination, but actually slaughtering the Palestinian people is a constant trait of the Israeli regime. It's part of a strategy to get rid from the Palestinian people, to rob the land from the original owners of this land. And now they do it in a very violent way with the daily bombings of Gaza.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned an organization's name, Herak Haifa.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit more to the Turkish audience about it? What is it like? Is it a popular movement? It is a front of various groups, or what it is?
In the last years, it is a general phenomenon that the young Palestinians, they are not happy with traditional leadership, and they try to take the initiative in order to struggle in a more effective way. Palestinian youth in many parts of Palestine are taking the initiative and organizing. Of course, all the Palestinian organizations are persecuted by the Israeli state. It's not a democratic state. And but the new kind of organization, like what we call Sherakat, or one is Herak, many are Sherakat. It's like it has the word movement somehow, but it is an attempt to build a movement that is more open, more spontaneous, more connected to the people, to the ordinary people, and less of an establishment like after sometimes some parties they become rigid establishments and far away from the people. So we try to keep our base as an open organization that is close to the daily needs of the masses.
Okay, thank you. And like, what is the relationship between the organizations, like various organizations, and how do you evaluate their position? Like, what do you think about the organization's positions and how do they connect to each other?
There is a network of the popular movements all around Palestine. And it is not an official network now. It is more daily cooperation about different struggles. And there is some connection also with traditional leadership, which has different shapes in different places. For example, the general strike that took place yesterday, it was, first of all, there was a demand from the masses to make a general strike in solidarity with the Quds and Gaza. And after the demand gained some popularity, in the Green Line, the leadership is the established leadership is through some parties, and the parties are organized in what is called the higher coordination committee. And the higher coordination committee officially endorsed the idea of a general strike. And on the ground, like in Haifa, for example, the Herak and there is more than one Herak actually in Haifa, and they all united for the success of the general strike. So this is one good example. Sometimes there is a disconnection, and not all the time there is such a wonderful cooperation of everybody. Now, because the situation is so severe and so Israel is so murderous, at least the Palestinian people yesterday united in a very wonderful way all over Palestine. Maybe one of the biggest achievements of this period of struggle is the unity of Palestinians all over Palestine in resisting the Israeli attack.
Thank you. And like, what happens today, like these days, and the resistance, do you think it could be interpreted as a breaking point?
It is not easy in the Palestinian struggle because Israel is so strong. Israel have nuclear bombs and have one of the biggest armies in the world. And Palestinians are now between the Jordan River and the sea. Palestinians are about half of the population, a little more than half of the population. And Israel is very strongly supported by all the imperialist powers and mostly by the United States. And they have no problem to use the most deadly force in order to oppress the Palestinians. Like in other places where people struggle, they hope that the government will be impressed by the public opinion, but Israel is not impressed by Palestinian public opinion or Arab public opinion. They don't mind. They don't mind that people will hate them as long as people are afraid of them, or even if they are not afraid of them, they are not strong enough to confront a well-armed army. So there is a constant confrontation, but actually, in my personal view, this confrontation cannot be decided to the side of the Palestinians as long as the imperialist power overwhelmingly support Israel, and as long as the Arab masses and the masses in the Middle East are neutralized from the struggle because current regimes are not interested to help the Palestinians in the fight for their liberation. So I think that the Palestinian issue is today, it is a symbol of the struggle in all over the world for freedom. It's the most severe case of colonialism, which is still active like in the 19th century, like expelling native population in order to put settlers in their place on a big scale all over Palestine. And I think the Palestinians alone, they cannot win until they get some help from the world. And first of all, from Arab and the neighboring nations.
Thank you. And what is the standpoint of the Arab population and Jewish population? Like, what is the relations and how do both sides evaluate the situation?
Let's make it two different questions, okay? First of all, the Arab Palestinian population in Palestine today is in a very highly mobilized in the resistance. We have seen the strike yesterday. It was very successful. People that never took part in strikes this time they closed, and everybody felt involved, and we make, for example, in Haifa, we make public activities, not only demonstration, but we make public activities with children and women and old people in all the neighborhoods in order to involve everybody in the strike. And I hear you don't have time in these days because all the time you are organizing more and more activities, but we hear from other villages and towns that on a daily basis the population is mobilized to help in the struggle now. It is not the first time in the Palestinian history. There was a great intifada that took about 5 years, but in the there was a second intifada in 2000. And but I think in at least inside the 48 areas, the areas that are occupied since 48, the level of mobilization now is higher than in previous intifadas. And people are very conscious here. Everybody, if you are Arab and you live here, you cannot ignore racism because it decides all the details of your daily life, from where you can walk, where you can live, how you study, and everything in your life. So everybody is aware, and now people feel strong to some extent because they are united and they are struggling. On the Jewish side, Israel succeeded very much to mobilize politically all the Jewish population behind the Zionist project, because they give privilege to the Jewish population at the expense of the Arab population. So there is no active force in the Jewish society that want to or is ready to give up this privilege. And they succeeded from gradually. The political landscape is moving all the time only to the right, with more and more openly fascist parties and organizations. But there is no big difference between what they call Zionist left and Zionist right, actually, because they all take part in ethnic cleansing. They all support discrimination against the Arabs. So mostly all the and a big part of the crimes against the Arab population were performed actually, but what was called left Zionism, like the Zionist Labor Party and so on. But actually now this facade, this false claim to be left Zionist, they actually abandoned it, because today in the Jewish society, being left is like a course, not like a political trend. And there is no, like, they struggle between different openly rightist and fascist parties. about who is more fascist, so they can get more popular because they want to be strong and to kill more Arabs and so on. So but the good thing about that I can say about the Israeli political development is that the state of Israel is in a deep crisis. Not because they consider changing their way, but because of internal problems. There is some sense of that the state is not going anywhere. And there is a problem with Netanyahu because he is well-known thief, and they have a criminal court which he should answer now. And other factions of the Zionist establishment, they want to get rid of him. So, and you know that there were 4 elections and there is no legitimate government. They cannot compose a government. And this is also to much degree because of their racism, because there are Arab members of parliament. But in Zionist thinking, to make a government with Arab members of parliament is like treason. So nobody wants to make a government with these members of parliament, and without these members of parliament, the 2 factions that quarrel about the leadership of the Zionist state, none of them have a majority. So actually, they prefer to, they hate each other, but they hate the Arab more. But so till now, it is already some years that they don't have a stable government, and they drag from one election to another election, and it is likely that there will be a 5th election soon. This is so the good part is that the system is also not working for its own reason, not only because of our struggle, but also the difficulties of the time.
But in the news, I saw some demonstration pictures from the Jewish side, like against the oppression of the Arab population. So it is like a minority of the Jewish society?
It is a small minority of the Jewish society, but you can say that most of the oppression is done by the state, with the support of the majority of the Jewish population. There is a small active fascist movement, but it is not so strong, and it mostly operates under the auspice of the police. Like in Haifa last week, there were attacks by fascists on the Arab population. They started with an attempt to attack a demonstration of the Herak, but they continued for the next days just because they were afraid to come to the Arab neighborhoods. So they were hunting for Arabs that live in mixed neighborhoods where they are a minority, and they were attacking people in their homes. They were accompanied by the police, like they didn't come alone. They were accompanied by the police, and the police helped them to organize and helped defended them while they were attacking Arab families. And they were preventing Arab people from the other neighborhoods to come and help the people that were under attack. But this week, we didn't see them at all, even that we had a lot of activity and we had more demonstrations. But this week, we didn't see them at all. So it proves, for example, that it is not a spontaneous movement of some hot-headed people, because the hot-headed people can still be hot-headed according to the situation. But it is a movement that was basically organized by the police and by higher circles in the Zionist establishment in order to terrorize the Arab population. And now when they told them, no, we don't want these problems, it makes us bad bad name in the world, and they just stopped it for now. The majority of the Jewish population doesn't want to go and make programs in the state. They are satisfied that the army and the police are oppressing the Arab population. And the oppression by the fascists in uniform by the police here is very intense after the demonstrations. And like in my neighbor where I live, they first of all they sit on the entrance to the neighborhood and they search people and arrest people randomly. And they also go, especially with patrols inside the neighborhood, and randomly shoot tear gas and not at demonstrations, not at people that are protesting, but people that just stay at their home or stand near the street, on the side of the street. They can attack them and shoot them tear gas or stun grenades or beat them or arrest them, just in order to terrorize the population. Now they are not doing it like by civilians, but they are doing it by the official police because it is harder to defend yourself when it is the police that is attacking you.
Okay, thank you. And my last question is, like, what are your expectations from the people who support the Palestinian cause in other countries? What would you demand?
First of all, I see that there is wonderful solidarity movement all around the world. It is not enough because the governments of the West, basically the United States, but also most of the European Union, they support Israel and actually they encourage Israel to continue bombing Gaza. This we have seen very clearly. Actually, Biden and Angela Merkel, they continue to encourage Israel to bomb Gaza, even that there is very high toll of the civilian population. So I think we should protest not only against Israel, because Israel don't mind about the public opinion, let's say in Turkey. But I think that Europe and the United States should be blamed, and we should put the responsibility for the continuation of the massacre on them. And you know better why, in what way you should speak and write and demonstrate whatever you think that is according to our abilities and conditions. But I think the only way to stop the massacre is to let the West powers hold their local dog. Like they send him to bite the people and they can hold him back to stop at least this wave of violent affairs.
Thank you so much for answering our questions. Do you have any last words that you want to mention before the end?
I think there is something very special about the current struggle, because till now, like even the first Intifada and the second Intifada, which were the highest point in the Palestinian struggle, but they were under very limited political perspective, because the leadership of the Intifada at the time, what they mainly wanted was to create a Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza. I think now we are in another political situation and in another world where the Palestinian people are united again after they were divided by the Oslo Agreement and by the perspective of the two-state solution. Today, people are looking at it in a different way. And today, people speak about liberation. They speak not only us, also human rights activists all over the world. At last, we said it all the time, but at last everybody now acknowledges that Israel is an apartheid state. It is racist from the beginning, not only problem of occupation of 67, and that Palestinians are oppressed everywhere, and the perspective now of the current Intifada is the liberation of Palestine and the establishment of one democratic state in all of Palestine. So now the stakes are higher, and the Palestinian people, I think, they feel stronger because they are united all over Palestine and in the diaspora. And I hope the people in all the world are also stronger through struggle. I see people struggling all over the world for liberty, and it is one struggle for everybody. Thank you.